Hey everyone, welcome to the Anxious Pastor Podcast. My name is Aaron Lee, and I'm so thankful that we get the opportunity to walk through this journey of anxiety together. Anxiety can be a lonely and overwhelming aspect to our lives, so I believe it's incredibly important that we work through it in a community. And that's what this podcast is all about. So if you struggle with anxiety or you are supporting someone who struggles with anxiety, you are welcome here. And our goal is to never give up and to create a culture of honesty and a culture of real people who are just being authentic and sharing their struggles, because we are not alone and we don't want to give up. That's why we say, let's get trying. If you would like to join the community in a more tangible way, we have a group over on Facebook called the Anxious Pastor Community. These people are incredible. They share their good days, they share their bad days, they pray and encourage one another. It's just a really awesome community of people. So if you haven't joined that group, today would be an awesome day. I know that it's been an encouragement to me, and I believe it can be an encouragement to you. In this episode, we are continuing our two-part series, Anxious and the Diagnosis. If you haven't listened to part one, please just hit pause right now and jump back. It was such an encouraging episode to hear my friend Bryan Hay discuss what she's been going through the past several months. And in this part two episode, I'm talking with her husband, Bryan. Bryan is my best friend, and I am so thankful to have him on the podcast and to hear his vantage point about what he and Stephanie have been walking through. Now, I'm just going to give you a full disclaimer. When we jump into this interview, he and I are bantering each other, so, just follow along. We're a bunch of idiots, and that's okay. But anyway, so settle in and take a listen to my interview with my buddy, Bryan Hay. Well, Bryan, what's going on, man?
Oh, I go now?
Yeah, it's your turn to talk.
Hey, Aaron Lee, it's awesome, man. About time.
About time what?
I should be in this podcast. I mean, come on.
I've asked you before.
I've been busy.
I know.
I mean,
not really.
But yeah, I mean,
whatever. You're lazy.
There's a lot of that.
Hey, man, seriously, glad you're here. Glad you're part of the podcast. I wish it was under better circumstances, but thankful that we get to hear your testimony, got to hear your wife's in the previous episode, and it's just incredible to hear her heart, her optimism about the future. And so I thought it'd be good to get the other side of the other vantage point, I guess. So you're the spouse who's walking through some things with your wife. So first off, before we get going into that, Bryan, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, man. So 35 years old. I'm me and my wife had two awesome kiddos, a 5-year-old boy who is annoying and awesome all at the same time, a 1-year-old that is already getting anything and everything she's ever desired in her life. So so that's kind of oh man, she's already switched from dad to daddy because she realizes she can get more stuff. So it's bad. So anyways, and then man, I'm a pastor as well, and I've been that for about 5 years. Mainly your fault. We can get into that later. But yeah, no, man, it's been a crazy journey over these last several years that through our friendship that you've seen. But yeah, man, so love my wife, my family, blessed, great friends, great church. So yeah, man.
Well, speaking of friends, who is your best friend, Bryan?
For 10 years, Aaron Lee, can you believe that, man? 10 years we have been best friends. Although it started out, I think we said something like kind of friends. We were kind of friends. And then, but no, man, dude, my boy Blue. I mean, come on.
Yeah. I just wanted you to say it.
I know.
I actually thought you might say LeBron, but I didn't know.
Michael Jordan.
Everyone listening to this has no clue what we're talking about. And all the, so you're a minister.
Yeah, man.
You're an outreach minister.
Yeah.
At a church here in Louisville.
Yep.
So tell me what that's like. Tell me what life's like as I know it, but I want our listeners to know a little bit about what you do as a minister.
Well, here's the thing is that, so for a decade before this, I was a sales rep for a big company, and I was always trying to sell stuff, and it was like boring stuff, like drywall, Like, I mean, I wake up every day and be like, I mean, whoever's like, today I want to sell some more drywall. Yeah, that's what, that's
Life
like
goals.
that life. Yes, exactly. YOLO, right? So this is, I know what that means. That's awesome. But man, look, what I get to do now, I mean, all kidding aside, like the best thing, like I get to talk about what matters most for everyone. And that's the why you're here, what you're going to do when you're not here, why you were even made. And then help people go and love other people. I mean, it's a ridiculously fun thing to do.
That's awesome, man. Well, I know your heart for people and your heart for ministry, and I'm always encouraged by that, even though I don't want to tell you that because you shouldn't get a big head about it. Anyway, so going back to what we were talking about earlier, in the last episode, we had your wife on.
Yeah, man.
And you guys have been walking through something recently. So if someone may not listen to that episode yet, you want to go ahead and share a little bit about what you guys are.
Yeah, first and foremost, go back and listen to that because she's awesome.
Yes.
And it's pretty amazing. Yeah, man. So man, we've known each other since we were 16 years old. I mean, I've been with this girl for 18 years. And so I love her, been with her. And then we've been through a lot over a lifetime of that. That's a long time. But nothing compares to what we kind of encountered. So with our 1-year-old daughter, my wife just 35 years old, October 16th, 2019, just a few months ago, we get devastated by some news that we never thought would be the case. A rare form of breast cancer, stage 3, scary, ugly. I talk 11 centimeter. I mean, this is a beast, and just man, you want to talk about flipping your world upside down. It in a moment, everything just froze and everything changed. And so, for the first, a couple weeks, it's crazy what happens to you. But we've been on this journey from, thank God we live where we live here in America, and that we've been blessed with the finances and ability to do things, good insurance. And so she's gotten in some great medical care. She's currently in chemo right now. Tumor shrinking. To God be glory. We're on a good path, and it's going to be a crazy year. But man, we're thankful for where we are today.
Yeah, and I know talking to her wasn't how you guys went into 2019 expecting anything like that to take place, which does anyone,
right?
And so it's good to see positive things coming from it, but it's still a journey, still going to have some rocky spots. And so,
no doubt.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. Okay. So I know you real well, and I know, just because we're actually a lot different, which
yes, we
is funny. Opposites attract, I guess.
There you go.
That's usually in marriage, which is weird.
It's awkward.
Anyway. So knowing you, we've had conversations about anxiety, depression, those kind of things. Before Stephanie was diagnosed, did you deal with any of that?
Man, not like, so what I've seen in you and Stephanie and on other people, friends and stuff of that debilitating either anxiety or depression. But what I've seen that and what you guys have gone through, no. I had early on just childhood stuff that I'd been through. It's another podcast for another day or something, but I'm trying to get back on here. But no, that like I had depression issues back then. But man, no, not really anxiety, the type I've seen in depressions I've seen you guys go through.
Has that changed since Stephanie's been diagnosed?
Man, I don't know how to explain it, but those first couple of weeks after finding out her diagnosis, the numbness, the withdrawn, I don't know what it was. I can't explain it in a way that I think that anybody's never had that type of information hit them would really get. The only thing I can say is that, as Stephanie had said, an outer body experience, waking up every day, wondering if it's a bad dream, not wanting to listen to like Christian music, not wanting to be around people, not wanting to, feeling like you want to withdraw. It's just the weirdest thing that I'd ever gone through. I thank God that I've come out of that a long ways, and you still have moments and stuff. But yeah, man. So the only changes really was there was just that season spot where it felt like you were not really in control of your own mind, your own body, but you were just kind of there. And each day you were just kind of ready for it to move on to the next day. It's just weird, man.
Yeah, I think that control thing is a big part of, for all of us. Most of the time, what flares mine up is that I can't control something. So when I'm in social environments, those kind of things, it flares up because I feel like I have no control of what's going to happen or whatever. And so I imagine for you, when you get this news, it's literally like you have no control. You can't just take this thing away from your wife. And I'm sure you want to.
Dude, man, look, you nailed it. Because for me, it's and I'm not speaking, not all men are this way or not this way, but for me, wanting to take it away, watching loved ones, people that you love so desperately go through something, I would rather have it a million times over. I know it's like, well, you don't know. No, I'm dead serious. I would, if I could take it away from her today and me have it, I would do it in a heartbeat. And the fact that I couldn't do anything about it, like I was just frozen because I realized I stepped into an area in which I literally couldn't control, man. And so you're dead on. They're absolutely right.
Yeah, I think I think all of us deal with that side of control, but what you're walking through is a lot more intense. And that's hard. It's hard because in the world today, we want to be able to do that. We want to be able to control things. And so how did you, we've kind of hit on it, but how did you respond to finding out that Stephanie had cancer?
So the numbness was there, but I'd say the very initial first 24 hours, maybe 48 hours of it was like, the best way I can explain it is standing face to face on a battleground, and the feeling of someone just handed you a spear or handed you a gun and said, "All right, you need to go take on this army." And so there's an adrenaline that happens, and I don't know if it's the protection of the man, like like this is my girl, like you know, like this is my bride, and so I was ready to fight. Like, I mean, there was just this feeling deep inside of me was like, I am not, no matter what this takes, no matter what comes, I'm going to fight. I'm going to carry her if she needs to be carried. I'm going to drag her if she needs to be dragged. I'm going to take her to the best doctors in the world. There's nothing that's going to stop me. And that's just amped up. And so there, I was in that zone. And then when that adrenaline wore off, that's when I kind of entered into that other of this lost feeling of realizing that even though I want to fight an enemy, it's an enemy I can't fight. It's somebody I can't touch. It's something I can't get to. I almost became a doctor in a week and a half. Like I turned myself into somebody who just chased the internet of every source of information. Because if it's on the internet, it's 100. It's absolutely. Right. So I mean, I am diving deep into everything I could possibly think of because I wanted to get lost in information just to distract me from the pain. And I want to do something to escape it. And the only thing I could feel like the only enemy I could fight was a lack of knowledge. And so I just decided I wanted to be as well educated as possible, and to fight in ways that I know. My wife, I told her, I was like, your job is to show up and fight. You just show up every day and you fight it. And you fight every day. My job is to take care of everything else. So if there's anything else that's in the way, I'm going to do that. And so anyway, so that's kind of the approach I took initially.
I know there's been some obviously ups and downs in all of this. What was it like to see your wife in one of the downs?
So, like there was a day that chemo had caused my wife to have a weakened immune system. She couldn't fight off colds, so she literally had a head cold for 3 weeks. Normally it would be 48 hours. But literally couldn't shake it. She ended up getting a stomach bug that no one else in the house got, but because she couldn't fight it, she ended up getting it. And there was a day that my bride is sitting on the bathroom floor, just struggling. She's just there and sick. And, it's images in your mind. If you think back to your wedding day, you think back to your honeymoon, you think back to these high mountaintop moments with your spouse, and then you have these moments, these images that you see in your mind, and you're going, I never thought I'd see this. And the extreme low for me was probably just the reality that I could lose her. And at 35 and being with her for 18 years, that thought had, yeah, in flippant ways, you'd go, yeah, I know one day that we won't be together, blah, blah, blah. But like in the moment, especially initially before you get any information and you don't know what's going to work and not work, those initial lows of seeing her and looking at her and go, I could lose her. That never crossed my mind. It never really hit home. The feeling of rolling over in bed in the middle of the night and reaching over and touching her and seeing her there and knowing, what if that's not there? What if she's not there? Those things, man, it's hard to even explain that type of feeling.
Yeah. I know you and I've sat across lunch or at lunch together for years, on Mondays for a while, Tuesday breakfasts now, and we've worked through a lot of hard things. We've talked through careers, we've talked through family dynamics, we've talked through ministry, we've talked through anything and everything, really.
Yes, we have.
This is probably the hardest one that we've ever came across, right?
Yeah, man.
So how have you seen God at work in all this? What's been the most beautiful thing about seeing God at work in all this?
Did I really believe people can change? My wife, look, everybody's got their crosses to bear and they got their thorns in the flesh, or however you want to phrase it. That my wife, like a good or bad day for 18 years of this girl's life was, is it a good hair day? Like a good day or a bad day is determined upon whether or not it was a good hair day or a bad hair day. Like I'm talking about, I'm being serious. Like this is like she struggled with vanity. Like I'm being dead serious. And like initially when first time I found out, okay, she's gonna have chemo, I was like, oh crap, she's gonna lose her hair. And like, and look, I'm worried about her life. She's worried about her life. Like, so don't get me wrong. Like the bigger things are the bigger things. But at the same time, I'm going, she struggles with anxiety and depression. She struggles with self-esteem. She always has. This girl that I've been with for 18 years, I've seen her struggle with self-esteem every day of her life, no matter how much I encourage her, no matter what. And so I've seen her struggle with that. Social anxiety of knowing what are people going to think of me when I walk into the room, getting up in front of people on the stage. What are they thinking of me? Does my hair look all right? Like just constantly worried about that. And the day came that she was losing her hair, and we knew it was coming. And we had a friend come over and they shaved her head and shaved mine too. I kind of had a head start with the back of my head. And so there we are. We both shaved heads and we were in front of people, and because she has that social anxiety thing, she never cries in front of people, or very rarely. And so that night it's just two of us, and I go, all right, sweetie, be honest with me. Are you okay? Like your whole life, vanity's been the thing that has owned you, and you just lost your hair. Gone. And she looked at me as solidly as I've ever seen her stand on anything. And she looked at me and she said, Bryan, it's just hair. And that may sound like to somebody out there going, well, duh, it's just hair. But you don't understand. For somebody that has struggled with that her entire life, for her to come to that reality and to stand with a smile and on solid ground go, Bryan, it's just hair. It doesn't really matter. And to come to that reality, that's God. Like, that's not her. Like, you can claim, oh no, she just something pulled up from inside of her that was a strength she didn't realize. Yeah. I know her. That's God. The thing that mattered most to her for her entire life, in a moment, in a blink of an eye, suddenly became something of no major importance. And I've seen now, that's just a snip of what I've seen in this whole 3 months or so of seeing her stand in strength that I can't explain. At times that we both talked about it, and she's just like, yeah, it's God. I don't know why I'm doing okay, but I am. Doctors from Houston, Texas to up here in Louisville, all of them, every single doctor we've encountered has said something along the lines of, there is something different about you. They just look at her and they go, there's something about you. All we can say is, look, it's more about whose we are than who we are. And it's about who she belongs to, and that God's carrying her in the areas where the enemy I couldn't fight. God was there and carrying her in ways that I never thought. So in terms of seeing God move, I've seen her take somebody that was honestly a weak vessel in a variety of ways, emotionally, anxiety, depression, and lift her. And the other way, man, is just through God's people that have loved on us, you and your family, to our church body, family, parents stepping up. Financially, we've received things that don't even make sense. At times where we've got the very lowest in our account that we've ever been, not knowing what's going to happen next, and then all of a sudden we get a check in the mail from an uncle from up in the Northeast that we haven't talked to since 13 years ago, or we got a $100 bill from my brother-in-law's warehouse owner that just said, "Hey, I just want you to have that." I mean, just there's 1,000 things, man. But what I'd say is that in the midst of this darkness, in the midst of this storm, the brightness of God shines brighter.
First off, that's amazing. And I think that should encourage us all to have a better perspective on life. But I also know there's people that continue to ask the question, why God?
Yeah.
And I wish everyone could have the same heart as Stephanie.
No doubt.
But put your pastor hat on for a minute. What would you tell someone who said, well, I have cancer. I don't understand why God allowed this to happen to me.
Yeah.
What would you say?
I know the feeling. Asked that question. Didn't want to. But my first reaction to them was, I get it. Ravi Zacharias was a guy I followed for a long time, and he said the problem of evil and suffering is a problem until you realize that your timeline doesn't look like God's. If God takes my wife off of this planet, people say stuff like that all the time. I used to say stuff like this all the time, but it's a legitimate possibility. If he takes her off of that planet, off of this planet, then in God's timeline, the beauty of the life that I've been able to have with her is a grace I did not deserve. I did not deserve the 18 years I've had with her. I know it's hard with the mentality of deserve and what does that mean and that type of thing. I think that the reality of me knowing the sinner that I am helps me understand the grace that she is, the gift that she is. Dude, I'm a non-athletic 5'9", bald-headed white boy, and she is a drop-dead, gorgeous, beautiful human being inside and out. I don't deserve her, and I never have. It is a gift I don't deserve, and it is a gift from God. And so if he wants to take that gift and take it to heaven, and I don't get to have it for a while, I thank God for the time I had with her. But I thank God more that I get to be with her for eternity. And so for me, it's in view of eternity. It's the only view that I can see this world and make sense of any of it.
That's good, man. And that's a hard perspective, but also a truthful one. I think for all of us, there's this, if you're a believer, there's this sense of, oh, I've got these phrases I have to say or I have to do or whatever, whatever it is, where we're trying to convince the world that we'll do whatever it takes or allow God to do whatever he needs to do. But when the rubber meets the road, that's when it's harder, right? That's when our faith is really tested and things are more difficult. I know that what changes the game for us is the hope we have. I grew up in the church, so it's hard for me to fully understand how someone doesn't have that hope. But there's a lot of people that don't have that hope, or at least don't embrace it, right?
Yep.
So if you're talking to someone who is in Stephanie's situation or has a family member in Stephanie's situation, but they don't have that hope. I'm sorry, I'm going super deep on you today.
Dude, do it, man.
What would you say to them to remind them or at least share that hope with them?
So in a very odd way, what I would say is this. A couple years ago, My mom was diagnosed with breast cancer. At the same time, within 1 month of us finding out about her diagnosis of breast cancer and her going in to have double mastectomy surgery, within 4 weeks of that double mastectomy surgery, she had her mother die and her father die. I remember feeling like, God, what are you doing? Not only give her cancer, but then have her mother and father, her support, the people that she's loved and been with, now they die all in the midst of this. And so here you are in this situation, in this season of grief and struggle with the reality of cancer. And as I was fighting through that, asking and questioning God and looking for hope and what's the purpose, what's the point, I got to preach those funerals for my grandparents. And there's a backstory here, but in brief, when I was 16 years old, there was a girl that I'd only known for a couple months. We sinned. It was a crazy environment, and we ended up putting up the child for adoption. This is the quickest story I can share in that version, but this is me being real. And so we put him up for adoption. We didn't have contact with him for years. I got in contact with him about 6 years ago. Started a relationship. Anyways, you fast forward to now this season where my mom is going through cancer, and I'm preaching these funerals. Well, Brendan, the boy that we had when I was 16, is there at the funeral, and I get to share the good news of Jesus there. He responds, and in 3 weeks, I'm going to be doing his baptism. My mom's cancer, my mom's and my grandparents' death brought my boy Brendan to 2 funerals where I got to share the good news of Jesus twice, to which he responded. And in 3 weeks, I'm going to be doing his baptism. I can't tell you why you're going through what you're going through, but God can take things that look like death and turn them into a life that you never thought possible. I don't know what God's going to do in your situation or in mine with me and Stephanie, but what I do know is God is at work. It may not be today. It may not be tomorrow. It may not be in our lifetime, but I can promise you the hope that you should have is that God is at work today in your life. And he's doing something I truly believe that somehow someone is going to come to know him and will spend billions and billions and billions of years in the presence of God and loved ones in the place we call heaven. And so your situation that is death or pain or diagnosis can be changed to something that only God can turn from darkness to light.
And that's a wrap. I can't say anything else, dude. That's amazing. That's amazing. And dude, I know your story, and I know both you and Stephanie. It's such a amazing thing to see people walking the way you walk every day. I want to be more like you guys, and I mean that. I ain't just saying that on a microphone. I really do. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for being vulnerable and being real and being honest, because the world needs more of that. The world needs to know that cancer is not easy. The world needs to know that sometimes we make mistakes in our past. The world needs to know that we can be better people from it,
Yeah, man.
And I think what you said kind of hits the next question, but how would you encourage someone who's just found out that someone they love? Because, I asked Stephanie that question, for the person who just found out they have cancer. But there's a lot of people in your boat who are spouses, husband, wives, who just found out that someone they care about is dealing with that. How would you encourage them?
Yeah, man, on a very practical sense, the very first punch is the hardest. So, I can't remember the quote exactly, but it was the Rocky Balboa quote. That was the, it's the idea of, the real strength is not getting knocked down. It's how many times you can get back up again. The very first punch is the hardest. All right. So hang in there. If you just got punched, that you need to know that you're going to get back up, and you really can. you can get back up again. And when you stand back up, your things are going to settle a little bit for you. So there's going to be some anxiety that's going to hit you, and you're going to have to somehow persevere in that. And I would encourage you, man. I'll be honest with you. I don't know what we would have done if we didn't have family or church friends. And so my challenge to them would be, listen, if you just found this and you're like, man, I don't have anybody around me. It's great, Bryan, that you have all these friends and family and people around you, but man, I don't. So what do I do? And I would say, listen, the next step should be to go to a place with a group of people that their entire mission and goal in life is to love God and love you, and they will walk with you. And so I don't know where you live or what church you're near, but man, my challenge to you would be to go and go get yourself in that family, which is the church, the body of Christ. And I know that sounds like a religious thing, but what I'm dead serious that those are the people that are going to be, they're not perfect by any means. But my encouragement to you would go get yourself in a community. Maybe it's this community through this podcast that you started, man. Maybe it starts even here. Maybe it's even just sending a message and getting united with some people who struggle with this type of thing. But going through it alone, even though I wanted to run away from people, was not the right answer. And so if I can encourage you anything, there's one thing to do is get yourself in a community. You got to do it. You got to, as your phrase of let's get trying, like you really have to try to get in a community. It's not too late. If you're still breathing, you're still going, you can still try to get in, even though it doesn't feel like you want to.
Well, thanks, man. Yeah, I think that's really good. Well, Bryan, thanks again. Thanks to both you and Stephanie for being a part of this, for being on the podcast, for being so willing to share your heart, to share what you've been dealing with, to walk through all that with me. And so, brother, I hope you know, I mean, you're my best friend in the world. I love you with all my heart. I mean that. As much crap as I give you, I it's all out of love. And man, it's so powerful to see what you're doing, how you're walking through all of this, and just the encouragement that you're bringing to so many people through it. So keep it up, man. Love you, brother.
Love you too, bro.
I hope you've been as moved by Bryan and Stephanie's outlook on life as I have. To be completely honest, I don't know that I would have their optimism and their hope, but to hear them speak, it really challenges me to have a deeper faith and trust in the Lord. So again, I hope you were as encouraged as I was. I mentioned this in our previous episode, but if you would like to follow Bryan and Stephanie's journey, then you can head over to Facebook, search for the group Stephanie's Shining Light Journey. Again, that's Stephanie's Shining Light Journey. Before we wrap up this episode, I wanted to ask for your help on a couple of things. First, I would like to point you to our website, theanxiouspastor.com. And that's really where we want you to be able to just go to whenever you're needing to figure out what's going on with the Anxious Pastor. And so on this website, you can find important links to our different resources and our communication channels. You can find a weekly blog, you can find the podcast, and you can find the Anxious Pastor community group. You can help support the podcast through Patreon there. Secondly, if you could rate, review, and most importantly, share this podcast, it would mean so much to me. Getting a podcast out there, it's so difficult. But in your hands, you can go even further than we could on our own. So if you would help us out with that, we want to be a resource to people who struggle with anxiety and those who are supporting people who struggle with anxiety. So please consider helping us do that. In our next episode, you'll have to listen to just me. I'm sorry, but we're going to focus on defining what anxiety looks like. See, the thing is that some people don't even know that what they're feeling is anxiety. They just feel uncomfortable. And for those of us who are actually aware of our anxiety, I'm wanting to give us a fresh perspective about our anxiety that has changed how I approach my anxiety, how I approach the battle that I face every day. So I think it'll be really cool and something different for you to think about. So be looking for that episode very soon. As always, thank you so much for making this podcast a success and for being real and honest. We won't give in and we won't give up. So let's get trying.